Hola amigos, Sean, brand ambassador with Spanish55 here. Y en este video, I'm going to be talking to you about 3 things that will shock you when you visit a Spanish-speaking country. Culture shock. So let's get right into it. Numero uno, you are going to be shocked by the amount of people who may live in the same household in a Spanish-speaking country. If you're from the US like me, you're probably used to seeing households with, I don't know, mother, father, and then a couple of children maybe, right? But in a Spanish-speaking country, you might see households with mama, papa, niños, niñas, abuelos, abuelas, tíos, tías, bisabuelos, bisnietos. I mean, I don't even know what bisabuelos and bisnietos are at this point, no, but you get my point. A lot of people, a lot of extended family members in the same household. Now, why is this? Well, the main reason is because Spanish-speaking countries are a bit more collective societies as opposed to individualist societies, like here in the US, for example. Now, we could debate like the ventajas y desventajas, right? Like the advantages and disadvantages, the pros and cons of this, right? Because some of you are probably sitting there thinking, Sean, there is no way that I'm living in the same house as my children and my parents. It's not gonna happen, and that's cool, right? To each their own, right? But like one of the things that I do think is cool is that, like, you know, here in the US, for example, you see all of these like senior living facilities, and that concept really doesn't exist that much in Spanish-speaking countries, just because in general, once, you know, your parents are not that independent anymore, you end up just bringing them back to live with you, which I think is kind of cool. I think it shows just a lot of love and affection, a lot of, you know, that collective society thing that we talked about. And I think that's one kind of cool aspect of the culture in Spanish-speaking countries. Numero dos. You are going to be shocked by how non-punctual people are in Spanish-speaking countries, including yourself when you go there. And I'm going to come back in a minute to what I mean by that. The main thing that you need to know is people are just not as punctual in general, especially for social settings in Spanish-speaking countries, okay? And there's actually a couple of links you could check out in the video description below. One of them is actually a Spanish55 article that talks about Mexican punctuality or lack thereof, right? And the other one is a video by Spanish Land Schools, which talks about, well, punctuality in Latin America. So check it out, you might find them useful. Simply put, people just aren't that punctual, especially for social things, right? And so you're gonna notice pretty quickly that, well, all right, 6 o'clock didn't actually mean 6 o'clock. It meant more like 7 or 7:30 or even 8 o'clock, right? Because you don't wanna be that person who shows up to someone's house for a party that you got invited to, like right on time at the time that they said. You show up to their door and they're like, ¿Qué haces aquí? Well, what are you doing here? You're like 2 hours early. And you're like, no, I got here right on time. They're like, no, we're not ready yet. Go away, go back home, come back in a couple hours. You don't want to be that person who shows up to the discoteca if you're going to have a night out dancing and you show up and you're the only one on the dance floor and there's nobody else there and not even the DJ and there's no music. You get my point. I'll take it as a story about when I was in Colombia one time. See, because I'm a person who I'm very punctual. Like I take pride, even in social situations, I like to be very punctual. I feel like it's very respectful for me to always show up on time for people. And in this situation, I had a lunch arranged with a friend at noon, right? And see, for this friend, it was in the middle of the workday, right? So like me, I was on vacation, kind of doing whatever I wanted, but you know, for my friend, it was the middle of the workday, right? So there was a bit more punctuality that had to be maintained for this lunch we were gonna have. And I had some other stuff going on that morning. Specifically, I was doing a hike with another friend. So the hike took a little bit longer than expected, right? And then we were having some amazing jugos de naranja. Woo, some orange juice. It was out of this world good. It was like the super fresh squeeze stuff that you generally don't get here in the US. So we're chatting, you know, we're enjoying our orange juices, and I had to go like from this place back to the place I was staying to change clothes, and then back like downtown to where I was gonna meet my friend for lunch. And anyway, I just kind of lost track of time. You do that a little bit when you're in a culture where people are just really enjoying themselves a lot, and it's not quite as like rush like it oftentimes can be here in the US. So I finally realized like, whoa, I gotta get out of here. Okay, so I get an Uber, but the Uber like takes forever to get me back to where I was staying. And then I'm like, oh, I'm running out of time, but I really got to shower. So shower quick, change clothes, go. Still got time. I should be able to get there, right? I'm like, all right, I got like 20 minutes to get there. Uber's not working that well today. One point also is that traffic in most Latin American cities is going to be worse than traffic in most US cities on average, okay? So I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the bus. I'm not going to take Uber this time. It's like less than a mile away. I know there's some bus stops, and like I can get there in like less than 20 minutes, definitely. Heck, I could almost walk there in 20 minutes if I have to, okay? So go to the bus stop. The bus is taking forever. Where's the bus? Where's the bus? I'm running out of time now. I text my friend, I'm like, hey, I might be just like a little bit late, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all of a sudden I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna walk there. I'm gonna walk. It's fine. I'm gonna walk. So I like start walking, almost kind of like jogging, like really speed walking. stop in to one of those like little stores where you can get like some electrolyte water. So I'm like refueling, like, okay, cool off, cool off, cool off. Long story short, I got there like 45 minutes late to see my friend, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Obviously, like the lunch was not like as long and friendly as it was supposed to be, and I just felt really bad. But like sometimes this is an example of what happens when you're in a Spanish-speaking country. The traffic can be bad. There can be issues with the buses not showing up. There can be, Ubers doing laps around all over the place. All these little things add up. Plus the fact that you were in like a different social situation with another person first, and you're like, I just lost track of time, and all of a sudden you're not punctual either, even when you're like me, and punctuality is one of the things you take tons of pride in, so it happens. Número 3, you are going to be shocked at how little you need fancy material possessions in order to enjoy life, okay? And this one really comes from the heart, all right? Because something that I learned traveling, throughout the past 10 or 15 years is that I just really don't need that much to be happy in life, And no, I'm not trying to say that all Spanish-speaking countries are poor, don't have any resources or material possessions, far from it. Like, I've stayed in places that kind of run the gamut, like 5-star hotels all the way down to places that really do barely like have running water and things like that in Spanish-speaking countries. So you get a mix of everything, right? But in general, probably on average in Spanish-speaking countries, the material possessions and the standard modern conveniences aren't quite up to par like, with a country, like the US, for example, or a lot of places in Europe maybe. So what does this look like? Well, it means you might not get a shower every day that's gonna have perfect water pressure with the perfect temperature hitting you at all times. It means you might not have like a dishwasher that is gonna wash and dry your dishes and even put them up in the cabinets. But I know that doesn't actually exist, but you guys get my point. Like, the modern conveniences might be a little bit lower standard than you're used to. And what you realize over time is you're like, you know what, I just don't really need it. It's just not that big of a deal. And you might even find that you actually kind of enjoy spending more time in a country or society like this that doesn't place so much value on all of these like material possessions or all of these like super high level conveniences and services, and places a little bit more value on personal relationships. Like we talked about, it's more of a collective society. It's a bit more relaxing, right? You might actually enjoy life better, and that's something that's very beautiful. So it may shock you to realize that you just don't need that much to be happy. But then there's some of you who are probably like, no, heck with that. No, I'm gonna stay in like a 5-star all-inclusive hotel. And if you wanna do that when you go to a Spanish-speaking country, spend a little extra money, you do you, that's fine. Hey, that's all I got for today's video. Amigos, muchas gracias por escuchar. Remember, check out the links below. Also check out the link for your consult with Spanish 55. Let's take your Spanish to the next level. All right. Hasta pronto.